Good afternoon, everybody listening to us today. You're welcome to today's Tech Talk Wednesday with me, Kazeem. And guess what? Today is going to be the last episode of the Tech Talk show for 2020. And what a better way to end 2020 than talking about how Dynamic 365 Human Resources can help customers and consultants. So that's what we're going to be talking about on the show today. And I've got my good friend with me on the show today, Kamal. Hi, Kamal.
Hi, Kazeem. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Very well, Kamal. So you're welcome to the Tech Talk show with me today. So before we delve into the show proper now, I'm sure people that are going to be rewatching this would want to learn a little bit more about you. So let's start things off with you introducing yourself first.
Okay. You know my name already, at least the first name. So
Yeah.
the last name is Radhakrishnaiah, so it's a bit complex Indian name. Um, on the personal front, I'm originally from South India, but I'm currently living in the Netherlands for around 4.5 years. I live with my wife and 2.5-year-old daughter. So
Yeah.
that's my family. I like to read, go camping, write a blog about dynamics. So that's what I do in my spare time. On the
Yeah.
professional front, I work at a company called Vision as a lead consultant. It is a Dutch company which is specialized in human resources and Dynamics 365. So it's a very unique combination, and it kind of fits very well with me for my passion, about human resources. Um, on a day-to-day job, what I do is I'm part of ERP transformations across domains and especially focused on human resources. And typically, I work with customers and partners across UK and Europe, helping majorly adopting Dynamics 365 human resources or aligning it with the rest of the Microsoft application stack.
Yeah.
Um, Other than that, yeah, I like to learn about country regulations because each European country is different, and especially around labor laws, it is
Yeah.
quite different. So I learn about them and see how they're adopted in company policies, etc. So
Okay.
that's what I
Okay.
do also as part of the job sometimes.
Okay, thank you, Kamal, for that introduction. So okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes of today's topic now. So Dynamic 365. I'll be frank now. Dynamic 365 is not something I'm big on myself too. So I'm going to be learning from you today, Kamal. So I want you to help us and the others that will be watching this at a later time now understand what Dynamic 365 is.
Okay. So let's consider a scenario. Okay, so let's say
Okay.
you have a company. I always use Hogwarts Manufacturing because I'm a Harry Potter fan. So we have a company, and let's say they're manufacturing LCD screens.
Yeah.
And so typically you have employees in the company, and they work on let's say creating some deliverable. It can be a TV screen or something like that, and you have some end customers. So you have your company and end customers, and you want to produce products, and you have different processes to do that. So one of the processes is human resources, and you may have a manufacturing process or a finance process, etc. And Dynamics 365 is a set of business applications that helps you work on all these processes, make those processes more efficient, and also automate where possible. So that is the simplest way I can put it. Um, and on the technical side of things, it is hosted on the cloud. And from a customer standpoint, you buy it as in terms of software as a service application. So everything is managed by Microsoft. and then you buy the service from Microsoft. So that's one part of the technical, story. The other part is, of course, let's say as a customer, you may want to pick and choose which application you want from the stack. So some customers may use the entire stack of business applications, which is, let's say, customer service, commerce, finance, supply chain management, and human resources. Or you can choose one of them or a combination of them. And specifically talking about human resources as a process and application or business application from Microsoft, you can think of processes like hiring an employee, where let's say we want to hire Kazeem to Hogwarts Manufacturing as a let's say as a worker who's going to create some nice LCD screens. He has skills to do that. Then as a HR, let's say I'm the HR, I open Dynamics 365 HR and input all the information about Kazeem, and he's starting on a particular date on a particular position. So that is done on Dynamics 365 HR in layman's terms. And once you join the company, you start interacting with Dynamics 365 HR to do things like adding your personal information or emergency contacts or changing your photo on self-service and submitting a leave request. And once you submit a leave request, it has to be approved by your manager, and the manager opens it and approves the leave request. So this is a bit more deep on Dynamics 365 HR, which is what I do on a day-to-day basis. And we have similar processes for finance, for marketing, for sales, for commerce, etc. So that is what Dynamics 365 can do to customers. Help them optimize the process and make the best out of the application.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Now, people that use Microsoft 365 knows that it comes bundled with a number of other business applications. So I want to ask now, how does Dynamic 365 fit well with the rest of the business applications from Microsoft, especially now with the very popular Microsoft Power Platform tools?
Okay, that's an interesting question, and to be honest, I think my Dynamics 365 Human Resources is one of the least spoken about applications. It's not very commonly spoken. So let me just start by saying that in any organization, human resources is the center of a company, and employees are basically the core of a company, and the way that HR processes work in a company connect the organization together. So it can be like how an employee is hired or how an employee does their day-to-day job. So it has impact from a human resource perspective, and that will impact the rest of the business processes as well. That being said, we have HR data sitting as a center of all the business applications, and you have different applications coming together on the finance side or on the first-party customer engagement applications, as Microsoft calls it, like the customer service, commerce, sales, and marketing as model-driven apps. So they're all one side, and finance and operations applications are on the other side. From an architectural standpoint, they're all connected via Microsoft Dataverse. It was called as Common Data Service in the past. So Dataverse kind of connects all the data coming from different business applications together. There are standard connectors, of course, and there are custom requirements when you work with customers to get certain data and connect them together. So Dataverse sits at the center, and the moment we have data in Dataverse, Power Platform is seamlessly connected with Dataverse. So that is how the famous Power Platform kind of works with the rest of the business applications. And one thing I think that's interesting to know is there is a recent announcement for Dynamics 365 Human Resources, which is called as virtual data entities. So basically, all the data that's available on Dynamics 365 HR will be exposed on Dataverse using virtual data entities. So that kind of
Okay.
gives a lot of power to integrate the HR data with the rest of the business applications.
Okay.
So that's an
Oh, okay.
overview of how I see it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just a quick one. So I'm curious now, what if you have a customer that is already using some other third-party kind of HR management tools?
Yeah.
So like I believe Salesforce is one of them. Would I be correct to say Salesforce?
I think they have some extension around HR. Yes.
Okay. So what would you recommend to this kind of customer? So is there some kind of integration? Is there a marriage now between, the Microsoft Dynamics and those other third-party tools, or they just have to pick between the two now?
That's an interesting question. So I would first try to understand the rest of the enterprise stack. So let's say you
Yeah.
have a customer who's using Oracle or SAP or Salesforce as a
Okay.
primary, ERP application. Um,
Yes.
then, if they decide to slowly move into Microsoft Enterprise Stack, and if they want to start with human resources as a starting point to do that, of course,
Yeah.
there can be integrations created, and with Dataverse, you have a lot of possibility to connect the data with external applications. So that is a common scenario these days, because
Okay.
in many cases, even within HR, there can be different payroll vendors in each country. So the
Yes.
integration scenario is common. On the other side, if you have a customer who's using Microsoft, let's say 365 and Microsoft 365 or some Dynamics application, then I would suggest to start implementing Dynamics as a core HR application. So they
Okay.
should consider using Dynamics 365 HR as a primary HR application, as a master application, and
Mm.
maybe in some cases, if they're present in different countries, then they may have some integration scenarios to connect with the local payroll application or some legacy which they cannot remove immediately.
Okay.
So
Oh, okay. And just quickly now, before I go to my next question, I know what people will also be wondering or might want to ask you about will be how about pricing now? Yeah, to migrate to Microsoft Dynamics, or the person you have a brand new company who is just starting out and they want to implement Dynamic 365 now. Is the pricing pocket friendly enough for a startup company, for instance?
okay, so I will not go deep into the numbers around the
Okay.
licenses,
Yes.
but one thing I want to highlight is, for example, if we consider only HR,
Yeah.
I think traditionally it was bundled with the unified operations licensing, like
Okay.
the overall finance and operations as a whole product. But in the
Yeah.
recent past, they have taken out the components of HR. For example,
Okay.
there's a license level for self-service. So if you're a company where you want to use, let's say, employees to access HR and submit leave requests or input, personal information, then there's a $4 licensing, if I'm not wrong, so per user. So I think
Okay.
it depends on to what extent you're planning to use the application and how the
Okay.
licensing is going to roll up to. But
Okay.
I would say the licensing is maybe primarily focused on small to medium scale businesses. So I'm pretty
Okay.
sure that the rest of the vendors out there may be more expensive, but I don't want to just say
Okay.
that out loud. But I'm
Yes.
pretty sure. I think there is definitely a workable number to meet all customer requirements. So I think
Okay.
that's possible. So I
Okay.
am
Thank.
politically correct on this one.
I understand, Kamal. Thank you very much for that response. So now let's get back to Dynamics Dynamics HR itself now.
Yeah.
We all know that human resource function is very vital. I mean, it's a very vital function of any organization for that matter. HR, for instance, is the driving force behind what makes a winning team of any organization. And there are a lot of processes involved in the HR process itself. So can you tell us, Dynamic 365 now, how can it help customer make their HR processes smarter and more efficient?
Okay. Again, it's one of the common things we deal with when we, let's say, start the project with any customer. This is the first question I get. So how is the
Yeah,
product going to help us?
yeah,
So I will try to segregate this into three categories. So
okay,
the first one would be, so as a product, Dynamics 365 Human Resources is built on industry standard HR processes. So
yeah,
if you're a customer looking at revamping or going in the direction of a digital transformation, then using Dynamics 365 HR, you have an opportunity to make your HR process very lean and simple. So you can consider revamping your process, optimizing it, and trying to align it with the new application. So that would be the first benefit of making your process efficient. The second part I would say is about the user experience. Uh, so when you look at how Dynamics 365 HR looks and how it is visible to an employee and the manager, it's clean and smooth user interface. So it's not very complex. So that helps in adopting your employees and managers to use the application more. So that is a
yeah,
key part where there's a lot of change management needed. Uh,
yeah,
and from Microsoft, there's a lot of investment in this area. So, for example, they recently, I think quite some time ago, they've launched a Teams app for Dynamics 365 HR. At the moment, the capabilities involve things like, as an employee, you can request leave on Teams app, so you don't have to navigate from Teams into a different application. So you can just
application, okay.
yeah, so you just open your Teams app and say there's a chatbot available, and you can say, can you give me my leave balance? And the chatbot, just pops up the leave balance in front of you, and you can say, I want to take vacation, and it would just pop up two fields: when is the start date and when is the end date. And as an employee, you can just select the end date, start date and end date, and submit directly on Teams, and it would trigger a workflow and send a notification to your manager. So it's really the power of having all of these components, right? Like the Microsoft 365 and Dynamics 365 coming together, they kind of makes the user experience very simple. So that is the second part. And the third part is a bit complex. Well, if you achieve it, it will be easy. Um, that is about creating a connected enterprise. So,
Yeah,
as a customer, you should always envision your enterprise architecture in a way to make the most of the entire enterprise stack. So,
yeah,
if you are a Microsoft customer, then you should use Microsoft 365 and the rest of all the business applications. Like, you should try to make the most of finance, human resources, customer service management, commerce, etc. And the true power comes in when you are able to connect all of them together, so that you
yeah,
have a central data point to understand how each of your processes is running and how connected they are, and where are the bottlenecks. A typical example can be you hire an employee and there are some financial dimensions that need to be added. So from a data source perspective, this is related to the employee. So the HR, kind of adds the data related to financial dimensions once, and that cascades to the rest of the business applications. So that is the true power of getting all components of the architecture together, and the data that it provides is quite rich, and you can do analytics on it and try to come up with some KPIs and drive your business decisions. So in the end, I think these are the three components that we try to explain to customers when they're starting the journey of using Dynamics 365 HR.
Okay, okay. So let me ask you this question also. Presently, I have a role. I work with a great team of people at the Lasso CBT, it's called. So Lasso CBT is a startup company, right? We don't have currently a full blown out HR department, but we have one of us, yes, playing the role of an HR person. And I see, yeah, she's trying her best now to use some different tools to get her job done. And we also have Microsoft 365 subscription, by the way. So I want to ask you, where does a company like Lasso CBT, a startup with Microsoft 365, where do we start if we want to start leveraging Dynamic 365 now to make our HR processes better?
Okay, that's a very good question, and an interesting one. And
Yeah.
so from a customer perspective, I would say you are a perfect customer for Dynamics 365. Uh, and where do you want to start? It depends on what you want to achieve. So let's say at the moment you have your recruitment process and you have your core HR hire to retire life cycle. So you get your employees and they work in the company and they retire in the company or get terminated. So if you want to start, I would say the first point would be to understand what the product can offer, because your processes maybe are not very mature at the moment. So you're in
Yes.
the process of making your processes mature.
Yeah.
So I would say, let's say, consider using Dynamics 365 HR in the first phase and explore how the core hire to retire lifecycle works on the application, and then
Yes.
that will define a lean process for you already. The moment you start understanding the application, it will define a lean process for you, and you can say on the hire to retire process, these are the steps involved. So
Okay.
you do the adoption based on the solution rather than doing it based on the process. So
Okay.
that will be the first step.
Yeah.
And the second step really is the knowledge part. So that is where a typical consultant would come in and help you, right? So
Yeah.
to kind of say, okay, you understand the product a bit now, so let's try to implement and design the solution. So you have to design and say, okay, this is a configuration you have to do, etc., etc. So,
Okay.
somebody like me would come and sit with you, understand your company structure, and say, this is what you need to do. And we have a sandbox environment which is available all the time, and you have a production environment. And we start designing the solution, do the testing, and go to production level, go live. I think it's not very complex, to be honest. If you
Yeah.
just start the journey, maybe you can be live in a few months' time.
Okay.
It's not very heavy, assuming that the volumes are less. So and then you are at the starting point of the process optimization. And then in the next phases, you can consider expanding the process to leave and absence, performance management, compensation, etc.
Okay.
So it's a very good journey to be on based on my experience.
Okay. So do you think the initial setup now is this something that a person who is fresh from a Dynamic 365 training can do the first rollout, or we're going to need a consultant like yourself now to start?
Very good. So I have seen both types of scenarios on the customer side. So one where we have a customer who, from a HR perspective, you have a HR administrator, for example. They
Yeah.
try to learn the product themselves with some training and maybe some help from the consulting or a professional training service,
Yeah.
and they give it a try and do the solution design themselves and try to get the system up and running.
Yeah.
It's a very subjective answer that will work also many times, but we also see that a consultant can really help in designing the solution better. I'm sure you
Okay.
can correlate with that. So my advice would be, even if you are trying to work on it majorly from yourself, from your team and the HR team's perspective, I
Yeah.
would still advise to maybe get the solution reviewed, by a
Reviewed.
consultant.
Okay.
So
No.
that way, at least you get some input and say, okay, the design can be better in some places, or design can be,
Yes.
and that definitely adds a lot of value on the long run.
Okay.
So that would be my advice.
Okay. And it's a good thing I know Kamal now. So
I'm very helpful. So yeah.
okay. All right, Kamal. So just before we wrap up on the show now, I want to ask you to, if we have someone listening, someone watching this video at a later date now, and
Yeah.
the person is interested in building a career in Dynamic 365, what will your recommendation be? Where does this person need to start, and how can this person work their way up from ground zero up, to become or to becoming like you now in the 365 field? Yes.
So let me share what helped me. Okay.
Okay.
So the first step was for me to find my passion, trying to understand what I enjoy working on. So from a domain perspective. So for example, when I started my career, I used to work on different HR applications. And that kind of, caught my passion, and I was enthusiastic about, understanding HR processes and, trying to optimize it for customers,
Yeah.
and then trying to implement IT solutions. So find your passion. That would be the first step, and what kind of helps you, be happy about. And once you know what area of business you're happy about, then find the product that helps that area. So for me, for example, I've learned, different applications. I've learned PeopleSoft. I've learned Oracle Cloud HCM, and now I'm currently working on Dynamics 365 HR. So it really, I'm keeping the domain clear. So I'm passionate about human resources, and I'm currently specialized in Dynamics. So I
Yeah.
improve my, knowledge level like that. So that really helps you on a long run, because it's not going to be a short journey, right? So you cannot just say, okay, I learned, Dynamics 365 HR, and I, I finished it. It's never going to be like that. So it's a
Yeah.
continuous journey, and you have to be passionate to go through that long period of time. So
Mm.
that is the first step. And second step, once you've identified your passion and the product that will, that is coming together for you, start your learning journey on Microsoft Learn. So if you're
Mm.
looking at Dynamics 365, finance, human resources, any product, there's a huge amount of documentation available on Learn. So explore, learn, and there are learning paths that you can explore to become an expert in any area. So that is the key thing I would suggest to start. And the other thing that comes along with it is follow the community events, and for example, the tech talks that you're doing.
Mm.
The community engagement is just
Yeah.
amazing for Microsoft communities.
Yeah.
And the kind of value, at least for me, it adds is I'm able to learn new things. So even though I work on Dynamics 365 HR on my day job, I'm able to
Yeah.
explore, let's say, Microsoft 365. I have no clue how Teams implementation works. And
Yeah.
when I watch a show where the expert on Teams is talking about it, or expert on Power Platform is talking about something, or anything which I don't know absolutely nothing about, I
Yeah.
start learning new things. So and
Yeah.
that kind of keeps you engaged, and like I said, the goal of any enterprise is to create that connected enterprise.
Mm.
All data should come together, all applications should come together, and being part of the community just keeps us learning a bit more and broaden our knowledge. So
Yeah.
that kind of goes together with your self learning. The last thing I would say is get certified. So
Yes.
this is a tricky part. It adds a lot of value and refines your knowledge in any
Yeah.
area. So whatever area you choose, if you try to get certified, you learn new things in the process, even though you are expert on it for like many years. When you try to do the certification, your knowledge is always improving.
Yeah.
And book your exam today. So, so otherwise you will never, work towards it. And that's
Yeah.
how I did it basically. So, for example, I'm certified in finance, and I specialize in human resources. But in the process of getting certified, I was able to expand my knowledge in the world of finance.
Yes.
So, get certified, and that always adds a lot of value to you.
Thank you so much, Kamal, for joining us on the Tech Talk show today. So it's been, I've learned quite a number of concepts, quite a number of terminologies from you today myself. So thank you very much. But just before we wrap up the show today, now, is there any last word from you?
Okay, so thanks a lot for the opportunity, Kazeem. It's a great way for me to end my year 2020. So it's one of the last days, and I'm really happy to be talking to you and discussing dynamics. And it's really great, what you're doing. You're kind of reaching out to people in a very unique way, and you kind of have the discussion to address different levels of individuals. The knowledge level kind of starts with at a no voice level to the expert level. You kind of pick some topics, and it's 30 minutes time, and yeah, it's great. What you're doing, and kudos to that. Continue doing what you're doing. I'm getting to learn a lot also. By watching your shows. So kudos. Thanks for that.
Okay, thank you very much. So here is what the time is going to permit us today on the Tech Talk Show Wednesday. And I mentioned this is the last episode for the year. So please remember to join us on Facebook and on across the social media platform now. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do. On YouTube as well. So it's the Tech Talk Wednesday with Kazeem across the social media platforms now. So please do subscribe, and let's continue to keep safe as well. So we'll do this again in the new year. That would be 2021. So thank you again, Kamal, for coming to spend some time with us and sharing your knowledge with us. So from myself and Kamal now, it's a bye-bye and thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kazeem.